This MailChimp-verific jingle is brought to you by MailChimp.
MailChimp, your marketing with AI and more. Advanced automations to connect to your store. MailChimp, your marketing and boost your clicks. Multi-channel campaigns now with SMS. That's lit.
MailChimp your marketing today with the #1 AI-powered email marketing and automation platform, Intuit MailChimp. #1 based on publicly available data on competitors' customers. Plans vary. SMS available as add-on. Visit MailChimp.com.
Have you ever watched your child freeze, wanting to speak but completely unable to get the words out? For so many neurodivergent kids, especially those with autism, selective mutism, or PDA, communication can feel impossible in moments of overwhelm. That's why today's episode is so powerful. I'm joined by Tara and Steve, parents who've created something beautiful for their daughter's struggle. A simple but life-changing set of visual speech cards, which is now an app called Find Your Voice. It's helping kids and adults unlock communication when words disappear. If you've ever felt helpless in those silent moments, or you're just searching for a tool that actually works in real life, then this episode's for you. So let's grab your drink and let's jump into today's conversation. Okay, Tara and Steve, you are raising a child who is nonverbal. Can you explain kind of what that is for people?
She's actually not non-speaking. She is verbal, she does speak, but she has moments where she's unable to speak. So she has periods whereby she will freeze or she just feels under pressure. So she'll have a bit of a jam, lock up. And so she will in those moments struggle to find her own voice and to communicate using words. And so that's kind of a big struggle for her, I guess. It's something that she goes through periodically and we don't see it for a long time. And then we have these periods where you're like, oh, she's really struggling with that at the moment. And I think that probably goes hand in hand with other struggles. If something else is going on, that we see the non-speaking quite a lot more. So, yeah.
Yeah. And like you said, it's kind of, there's often something else going on as well. So it's kind of you're not only trying to pick up those signals or those triggers in the moment, but you're also trying to figure out what else is kind of happening behind the scenes. And yeah, work in the moment, but then also work long-term of like helping to ease that, which is hard. Can be really hard.
Yeah. And then to unpick it as well after, because often, it will happen in a simplistic way in the sense of, you might be asking her to choose a cake or, would you like this sandwich or this sandwich? And you can't get to an answer. But once she's freed up and she's speaking to you again, it's almost kind of, okay, how do we unpick what the trigger for that was, and how do we get to that without triggering another hard response or another meltdown or shutdown, because there's something there triggering it, and unpicking it is helpful. But sometimes to try and unpick it is triggering for her. So it's kind of like, okay, where's the balance here, and how do we do it in a way that isn't going to cause more distress, I guess.
It's definitely a balance.
Yeah.
It's definitely, the conversations we have now are so open, on a daily basis of it all kind of go in the same direction of trying to alleviate, problems that arise from certain situations by giving her the confidence, even if she doesn't know how to cope with it, we've got her back. Like that's been a big part of, the family dynamic, I guess. Not pushing her, not being, the parent that, wants to do the right thing because society suggests it, but just work through, this is what we're dealing with, and this is, we have to just go with the flow sometimes. So there's definitely a lot of touchy-feely attempting not to tip it over the balance. But my God, it's so stressful sometimes.
Yeah, and that's a really good point about thinking it's not even necessarily an adult or a parent putting the pressure on, but like internally that kind of pressure themselves. Like you said, she knows she needs to get to school for this time. Other children get there, or
Yeah.
So it's not you necessarily putting that pressure on, but it's there, and it's kind of, yeah, like you said, I hadn't really thought of that before, like that kind of just even
then.
Yeah, and I think that plays out with so much, you know, particularly with kids who are autistic, who have that high anxiety element, you know, which I think is what the non-speaking thing comes down to. It's very much anxiety induced. And that's the thing with the perceived pressures. There's so many of them that even if we let go of all the expectations, which we've tried to do, I think we've very much realized that when we have those expectations, it generally just goes bad. So it's like, let go of them, you know, let go of all those. We're going to do this at the weekend, and we're going to have this wonderful time at the beach, and we're going to do it, you know, letting go of all that and just kind of trying to be a little bit more fluid and letting things just happen.
Spontaneous. Some people would call it spontaneous.
I just call it secret planning, where I don't tell anyone except maybe my husband.
I like that.
And then I'm like, oh, we're going to do that. But like in reality, yeah, like, oh, didn't know you were going to be at the park today, you know, even though I've like planned yeah. So I know you said she's not necessarily nonverbal all the time, but how can you communicate when she is nonverbal, or have you seen other ways that people can communicate to kind of nonverbal children?
I feel like for her, it's often, like I said before, kind of like tuning into her body language, tuning into her facial expressions, you know, and she's very good at even, you know, mime. So when she, you know, she's in that, she hasn't completely shut down, but she can communicate in some ways. She'll often, you know, she'll do the pointing and stuff like that. So I think, you know, the body language is a massive kind of clue and a I used to get her to write things down when she was kind of withdrawing, which kind of worked a bit, but then she'd get kind of frustrated with doing that and get a bit annoyed. And I think it was kind of like, because it's such a much longer drawn out system, that would kind of frustrate her, I think. And so another way she communicates is just through some communication cards that we have that we rustled up for her, and a communication app as well, which we also rustled up. I feel like for her, again, they're another sort of unlocking tool. They don't replace speaking. It's not a sophisticated, you know, communication tool, and she can't express absolutely everything or anything. But these are kind of like a bridging tool, I guess. They kind of somehow just unlock enough for her when she's gone into that shutdown mode that she can then say something, be it a short phrase or a word, that she can then just unfreeze herself and be able to move on and to then kind of go into the next phase of explaining or talking. And often when she'll just show us a card, it might say, I'm frustrated, or I know what's one of her favourites she uses a lot. I'm not impressed. That's one of her real favourites. And so she'll hold that up, and it's kind of like, okay, you're not impressed. What are you not impressed about? And that can be enough for her to then go, and she'll give a full explanation, and you're like, oh.
It gives a license almost to then feel like, okay, I've done the hard bit, which is explain to them there's a problem that, you know, to some extent this, you know, starts to unlock.
But then when she uses the card, it just sort of almost unlocks her and frees her to say the rest of what she needs to say. And it's like, sometimes she'll just hold a card up and it's enough. It's done. It's like, I need a hug. And you're like, easy.
Yeah, some of them are quite literal.
When you hear Lululemon, you probably think of Align yoga pants, weightlessly soft, like you're wearing next to nothing. That's why you see them in class, at the grocery store, and in the park. But did you know about skirts with built-in liner shorts so you can still jump for the Frisbee? And tanks and bodysuits? With Align's iconic stretch, you won't want to take it off. And with endless style options, you don't have to. Shop in-store or online at Lululemon.com.
Introducing the new Volvo XC90 with 7-seat versatility, Google built-in, and advanced safety features for all your precious cargo. The new Volvo XC90, designed for life. Visit volvocars.com/US to learn more.
Yeah. So with the cards, what are they called?
So they're called Find Your Voice, and as Tara said, we started to look for a way to help her. And there's other products on the market that we got hold of some, and it was like, you know, these might help, you know. they'd break that silence. And Afton looked at them and pretty instantly said, I'm not using them. And we were like, why not? They could be, let's give them a try. And she's like, they're just cringe. Everything's got to just look right. Even just to us, she just refused, didn't she?
Yeah.
Flatly was embarrassed, I think, to use them. And she used, I think there was times where she used them a little bit. And I think she could see the benefit of what they were, but she just didn't want to get them out in public. And I think the set we had about 15 cards or so.
Originally.
The original set you bought. And they were unclear. Some of them had too many words on. They were trying to sum up too many scenarios. And so there was a little drawing of, a kid with a headache. There's too much noise. I need to go somewhere else. I need it to be quiet. And, 15 words, all on this little thing the size of a credit card. Really hard to look at and decode quickly. And so, I guess I looked at those and said, you can't decode them quick enough. And then when you pair that with, like, visually with an illustration style that's almost a little bit preschool, that tallies with her saying they're not cool enough. And so right from the get-go, it was, let's just keep it really simple. Let's keep it, a little bit cool, a little bit quirky. Let's put some quirky ones in there. So there's one that's, I've got pain, and it's a figure with an arrow through its head, just for a bit of silliness in a way. But it's very, you get it, right? It's not designed to be comedy. It's designed to convey its message very quickly, but maybe in a way that's a little bit quirky or a little bit more for kids. And I think the more the project went on, the more we added, and the more Afton was saying, what about if one that covers this, one that covers that? I don't think we intended initially to do anywhere near the 54 that we ended up doing. Because the cards themselves, the actual design and shape of the cards is kind of similar to a phone shape, in the size and stuff. We knew the hard bit was how you quickly flip through 50 cards. So we tried lots of different ways of, searching for the one you wanted and, flicking through them one at a time like you do with the keyring one. Before we landed on, and tested it with Afton, and he said, what about this? And would it work on the iPad? And netted out in a place where the same thing happened as the cards, where actually she didn't want to, because that's really helpful. And there were some that she always wanted to get to. So we built in the ability to like those cards so that she can instantly access those. But really the interaction between her and the app was always designed to just be as simple as possible and not be clever and not be just be slick and easy. And then Apple flash up, if you want to keep this on your phone, you've got to put it in the App Store. You can't put it on the phone just for your own joy. They want you either selling it or we don't want you having it on your phone. So I think at the time we got 2 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, and then it was like, okay, that's going to be a pain in the arse to keep uploading that every few weeks. So it was like, okay, how do we get it on the App Store? Which again was another massive learning curve, because that, it's just technically very challenging. It's really hard to get something through that net of quality control from Apple, and many documents to sign in all sorts of territories, and there's all sorts of hoops we had to jump through, weren't there? And it was like, I think by that point it was like, we have to do this. We'd had enough people say, this is quite good. Like this is actually one of the better things we've seen in terms of a tool for, people that are really struggling to communicate.
But we also felt we were getting a lot of people, curiosity, I guess, if they'd see Afton using it in a cafe, would, oh, what's that? Oh, and then you'd explain it and they'd go, oh, I'd use that. Oh, I'd use that at work. And you're kind of going, light bulb moment. Like we were kind of I guess in our head, just thinking in terms of an autistic child, because that's where our vision was sitting. But then we very quickly...
one autistic child,
Yeah. And then very quickly it was kind of like, adults would want this too, you know, because it's not childish looking. It's not, you know, aimed with rainbows and unicorns and, you know, it's a little bit more simplistic than that, but it's also a little bit more, I guess, I don't know what the word is, sophisticated? No, probably not.
It's
probably
the wrong word. It's sophisticated, but it's got universal appeal.
Yeah, I was like, it's simple, but it's, like you said, it's not all rainbows and sunshine, like kiddie looking. But a kid could interact with it because it's simple, but an adult can also interact with it because it looks like for an adult. Like, does that make it like you have...
I can't explain it either, but
yeah. Like you have designed it in a way that is for anyone. Yeah, you can use it for any age because of the simplicity and the just kind of, the design of it is just very easy to use for children and for adults.
I think we also realised that is, again, when people looking at it sort of, you know, over your shoulder in a cafe or whatever, and them saying, you know, I hate yellow and I'd never use it if it was always yellow, or, you know, I find red really offensive. And it's kind of like, because initially when we appeal to people as an individual, right, because we're all going to have those tastes and stuff, and it's like, okay, we can't cover all areas, but there's a lot we can do to kind of, you know, make it fit people's needs, I guess. So yeah, it's I think we've kind of surprised ourselves, to be honest.
Yeah, it's not one. I've not heard of an app. This is you guys are the first app I've heard of where it can help identify emotions, and not just emotions, but identify kind of the moment. Like, and I've come across quite a few different cards, or I mean, we have a emotional wheel in our house. Like, you know, there's lots of kind of printing things, or like kind of that download PDF type stuff, but to have like an app where, like you said, because part of that is the scrolling is just, let's be honest, we all scroll, like social media, like, you know, all those things. And so that kind of scrolling can just even be, like you've said, kind of therapeutic in a way. And so you're not losing any of that, I guess is what I'm trying to say, which is a really, really important thing.
Yeah, I think sometimes people maybe misconstrue the fact that we are aiming it to be a bridger. It's not replacing speaking. We're not a sophisticated, you know, sentence builder, but it's that moment where you get the freeze and you get the lock up and you get the feeling of stuck, because that's what Afton would say to us. I just feel stuck. I feel frozen and I can't do it. And it just unsticks. You know, there's something about just having that ability to point to something or hold something up or touch something that just frees her to then be able to move forward. And it's all just like the moving forward part, I guess. And that's what's been so powerful about it and so surprising of actually how it really enables that. And it kind of got, because when we first did it, we kind of didn't expect it to be so good. We were like, because we bought some on a whim, you know, it was kind of like, oh, let's just try that because we're stuck. And seeing...
It did catch us off guard.
It did. And seeing that they actually worked was surprising. But then we obviously hit the stumbling block of, I don't like them, they're horrible, and I'm not taking them anywhere. So then us making our own and going, she connects with it. It makes sense for her. She's happy to use it. It's kind of like that made sense of it all, I guess, really, didn't it?
She knows that we've been working on other sets right from the get-go, actually. It's like, oh, that one's a bit too much. That one's a bit too far. There's one that I'm frustrated, and the hashtag, it just looks a bit like cartoon swearing. And she was like, oh, I think you should put like a swear word in. And it was like, oh, maybe we could, as the feedback was coming through that we might be able to do it for adults, or these would be right for adults as well. It was like the different sets of Uno that you buy. That's the extreme one, right? That's not going to be the everyday kind of, family friendly one. That's going to be the extreme one. And so she knows that that's, around the corner. I don't think she's going to outgrow them, I guess, is my point. All the time they're useful for her, and she's not, feeling like they're, something to be embarrassed about. She's going to use them.
That's good. Yeah, no, it's from what you guys have posted and what I've, done my own Googling and researching. It's definitely, something that I think what I found was one, it's an app. Like, I don't know of any other app, which maybe there are out there. I don't know. I just don't know of it. But two, it's that age that it fits for everyone. So yes, like, but it's not just like, yes, the aim, probably the target audience is probably more people who are neurodivergent. But the idea that in most couple, you know, if you have a neurodivergent kid, you're likely, I'm not going to say everyone, but you're likely to have at least one person in the relationship be neurodivergent. So that might help, you know, help them as well. So it kind of fits a large audience, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And it's just a really...
One thing so. I mean, time will tell. But we don't know.
Yeah, true.
We think so too.
Yeah.
And I mean, you know, and then it goes to, we've had people say, oh, you know, we've got a parent that's just had a stroke. You know, this is great for aged care. So, you know, again, it's not even limited to just neurodivergence. It's just trying to give everyone a voice. Everyone deserves to be heard. So, but yeah, it's definitely come from our own challenge. That's for sure.
Yeah. That's a good point. It's not just for people who are neurodivergent, but people who need help finding their voice or using their voice can use it, which is cool. I like to end every episode with this question. What do you want the world to know about neurodiverse people?
One of the things is assume competence. Always assume competence. I think when people or neurotypical people see or come across people who are autistic or neurodivergent in another way, there's a vast assumption of what people are capable of and what they can achieve and what they understand and how they function within society. And I think we need to assume competence because there's so much underneath that you're just not seeing. There's so much that's bubbling away and we do people a disservice. So I think that's one of the things that I guess is a bit of a bugbear for me of, yeah, really? And that they're not broken. Autistic people, neurodivergent people, they're not broken. They don't need fixing. They don't need changing. Yeah. They're just who they are and they deserve to take up as much space as everybody else. So
I turn it on its head and I say neurotypical as had its time, all right? I don't care for neurotypical people anymore. The message is for neurodivergent people. Hold tight because the world is changing. The world is changing very quickly now. And, you know, people I think are waking up to the fact that difference is good. Difference is needed. So my message probably goes out to those that are neurodivergent and says, hold tight because it's coming. The change is coming and, you know, let's all bang the drum. Neurotypical has to change. There's so many things in the world that are just so screwed up because they're neurotypical. And the expectation is that you will fit to that groove. And that has to change.
Well, thank you so much for joining us and having this conversation and sharing more about this incredible resource that people can download or have on their phones. So thank you again.
Wow, what a great conversation. I think what stood out most is the reminder that communication isn't always about words, it's about connection, feeling safe and being understood. Whether your child is navigating PTA, selective mutism, or just struggling in the moment to say anything, then the tool Find Your Voice can make such a difference. Why don't you go find them on Instagram or share it with a friend who might find this helpful. Until next week, remember, you're not alone, your child is not broken, and we're all figuring this out together. See you next week.